All right, Joe, you want to lead us into the show?
All right, so this is BS with Joe.
I'm Brad.
I'm Joe. And on this one, I wanted to talk about housing costs. And not, I mean, I'm a renter. I'm not a homeowner, obviously. I've never owned a home. So my perspective on it is from the point of a renter.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to move sometime in the near future, probably in a few months. But so I started looking around.
Mm-hmm.
And as you do, you know.
Yeah.
So I started looking around, started doing some research, and the average one-bedroom apartment in the Orlando metro area is going for $1,600 to $1,800 a month.
Wow.
Right. In order to be economically sound, you can't really be spending more than a third of your income on rent.
Mm-hmm.
So after taxes, we're talking, you know, if you're looking at a $1,600 a month rent payment, then you have to be making what, $61,000 a year, $62,000 a year, in order to be within your budget
Yeah.
and not stretching.
That's difficult.
Right.
Um.
The average median income in the Orlando metro area per capita is only $39,500.
How can anyone afford that?
Right. Now, the average median income, not the per capita income, but the average median is like 41. But still, $41,000, the most you can afford is maybe $1,150 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. Now, married couples are making $65,000 a year.
Yeah.
So, the housing market is geared only towards married people, which I don't know if you noticed, but there are fewer and fewer people that are getting married.
Right. And that's because it's harder to grow a family.
Yeah.
And
People know they can't afford it.
right. And the thing is, a lot of this is going to sound very sexist, but a lot of women want somebody that makes more money than them. And if you both have the same income level and you're both just affording an apartment, something's going to give in the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. And you're right, single individuals, how are they going to make it? How are they going to live?
Right. So some of the places that are out there, you know, and you look at places that are at the $1,100 to $1,200 a month range, are what's called restricted income. Okay, so when you go and you apply to, get a lease with them, they look at your income and they say, okay, well, you can't make more than, I think it's like $39,000 a year
Right.
to get that rent number, which is barely affordable at $1,200 a month.
I don't understand that. So you're restricted by how much income you can have.
Right, at
But yet-
$3,900, I think you can only afford like $925 a month rent.
Right. And it's more than, your rent's more than that.
Right.
So you can't even afford.
You can't even afford the
income restricted income places
Exactly.
for what they are.
Now it changes if it's double income. You know, that changes, and they have two different tiers usually, where they'll pay either 30% of your rent or 60% of your rent. And at 60% of your rent is where that $1,200 is. So you've got to be making less money in order to afford that one bedroom at $1,200, which you can't afford it to begin with.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not talking about Section 8. Section 8 is a totally different story.
Right.
I'm talking about just the regular Joe that tries to get an apartment that he can afford, you know, and you're looking around at places that are like, okay, that's in my budget. Let's look at it, you know, and then it says income restricted.
Yeah. So you basically are having to share a one bedroom apartment with a roommate.
Yeah. The guy that lives across the hall from me has a roommate. It's a one bedroom apartment.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, forget about privacy or ownership of private property. because you don't have a room to lock it up. You might as well be in like a military barracks where you have a bunk bed and a lockbox to store your private items in.
basically. Now, there's quite a large market in Orlando of people renting rooms, but they're renting a room with limited access to the rest of the house at $900 a month.
Right, they're probably sharing a bathroom, they're sharing
Right.
a kitchen, they're sharing other amenities in the house.
Right. I mean, you can't. If you're renting a room from somebody in their house, you can't come home and sit down on the couch and watch TV.
No, you can't raid the refrigerator.
No, not unless it's your shelf.
Right. If you're given a shelf.
If you're given a shelf, right? You might have to have your own little private refrigerator in your room.
Right. And probably a little hot plate to cook in your room because you may not have.
And you're paying almost $1,000 a month. So, the thing is, here's what's the solution? Is what I'm saying. So, I mean, we could contact our state representatives and tell them to offer tax incentives to apartment complexes that do have affordable rent for the median income.
What it is it's the places are probably older apartments, so they're probably close to paid off.
Right.
Plus, if they were built, prior to all this inflation, the only reason why they're as high as they are is because of the demand.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at my limited experience of economics.
Well,
So supply and demand. And
if you look at the apartments that are in the $1,800 to $2,000 range, most of them are sitting mostly empty.
yeah. So how are they? So they're inflating the price just to sit empty.
Yeah.
So it sounds like as if they're price fixing apartments.
Right.
So it's not even a matter of supply and
The
demand.
developer is getting paid by the government to produce housing. It's not affordable housing.
But produce housing.
Right. So they made their money.
Right. But the whole
And now if they take away property tax,
if DeSantis takes away property tax,
it helps the homeowners, but it also helps these property owners that are renting, apartment complexes and that kind of thing, because they don't have property tax anymore.
right, and it doesn't, and it shouldn't have to go down to the renters. But I guarantee you, they're not going to lower their prices.
No way, they're going to raise the prices.
Right, and that's where. So, I know in the past, a lot of your people who rented, they were always smaller apartment complexes or duplexes.
Right.
And they would own it and rent it out for an income, and it would just supplement their living expenses.
Right.
And they'd wind up with the property afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, New York had a problem. New York City had a problem similar to this back in the 70s, I think.
Yeah.
And that's when rent control started.
Well, that's also when in the 80s, New York went to a hellhole.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is I'm not saying that we need to move towards rent control. It's, this is a free society. It's a capitalist society.
Mm-hmm.
People are allowed to make their money.
Right.
But how do we get the morality in where the availability of housing matches what the average income is of the area that housing is available in?
Right. And that's the thing. You're right. You hit nail on the head with morality.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about greed. Because a lot of your older apartments and your duplexes were mom and pop owned.
Yeah.
Even your rental houses are mom and pop owned. And they're getting out of the business because the houses are being destroyed.
Right.
Because the people that are moving into them have no morality.
Yeah.
And now you got these corporate businesses going into these large apartment complexes, getting federal grants to build them because there's a demand on housing.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have them, they're somewhat vacant because they're charging too much for them. And it sounds like a lot of shady business.
It is.
But I also think that there's multiple tiers on reasons why this is happening. And I think a lot of it has to do with morality. So let's look at number of population. What could inflate population? Now, this is just me spitballing here. Illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
They could inflate that. And also, if you get like 4 of them renting a 1-bedroom apartment, they can afford it.
Right. And they can still send money home.
And they could still send money home. And then you get, that's one possibility for part of that. The other part is, we didn't talk about with Section 8 housing, where the government's funding individuals to stay in a place for a high.
Right. I intentionally didn't talk about Section 8.
Yeah. And then you also have...
Because I'm not looking for a handout.
No.
I just want something I can afford.
Right. And the thing is, the handouts are what's creating some of the inflation.
Right.
Because you're going to have individuals who have to have that government income, probably, and this is not a knock for single mothers, but I'm going to just state the facts. Single mothers usually get government funding because fathers may not be able to pay child support, and if they do pay child support, that's part of what's going towards the inflation of these housing costs. Because if the owners of these housing or apartments can get more money out of an individual, they're going to get it.
Yeah.
And that's where the morality's coming out of it.
Right.
And
morals in business don't really. I mean, I know that anybody that goes to college for business has to take an ethics class.
right.
Do they just forget it as soon as that class is over with?
Well, what it is they're teaching them the ethics of fiduciary. I'm butchering the name. Fiduciary reasoning. So they have to owe their tax or their shareholders first. So they have to meet the demands of the shareholders first.
But that has nothing to do with ethics.
No, but you're right. I don't understand.
I think it's their own definition of ethics.
It's their own definition of ethics.
Yeah.
Well, that's also going about what we're kind of been battling is woke versus awake.
True.
They're like, well, this person deserves this job because of, there's not enough of this individual class in this job. So we're going to give it to them. And they can't do the job.
It's just like just recently at my job, there was a job opening for a supervisor. And there was a group of us sitting around in the break room. We were talking about that job opening, and one of the people that was in this group said, "It's going to be a woman. Watch, because there's too many men right now." And I'm like, "Well, that's not right." And he's like, "They use DEI here." And sure enough, it was a woman that was hired. I'm not saying she wasn't qualified for the job.
But if you have a list of qualified candidates,
Yeah. I mean, that shouldn't be a part of the decision process, is what I'm saying.
you're right. But we all know that is a part of the decision-making process anymore. But and it's getting to where surviving's getting harder, and it will continue getting harder. Hopefully, housing costs will get better with the economy getting better. Because I remember when I used to rent an apartment, I only paid. My first apartment was like $360 a month, and everything was included except for electricity.
Yeah.
And then my second apartment, it was $470. And
This is a very long time ago.
yeah, this is a totally different state. And
But even a regular house, to buy a house right now in the Orlando metro area, if you can find a crap hole that'll pass a HUD inspection for $130,000,
yeah, you're looking at like you have a better chance of landing on the moon,
right?
than finding that spot.
Yeah, starter homes don't exist anymore.
No, No, your starter home anymore is $300,000
Right.
in probably the Orlando area.
And that's not a starter home.
No, I don't know a single individual that could afford that.
Right.
And that's the thing is, like, I honestly think that banks are targeting young individuals who don't understand economics, getting them into these.
Which is why foreclosures are through the roof and repossessions are I can't tell you how many times I see, I mean, every single day I see the repo tow trucks. You know the tow trucks that they're the smaller tow trucks that just have the thing on the back?
Yeah.
You know? They're not a bed or
Flat
anything.
bed,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just the hook.
The hook, yeah.
You know? Those guys are out there doing repos. That's what
yeah.
they do. They do
Oh,
it all
yeah.
night long. And I see them every day when I'm out working.
Right. And that this is another thing about morality is I don't blame an individual who puts themselves into a debt situation like that trying to survive, because survival is ornate. But
It's possible they were taken advantage of by predatory lenders.
absolutely. And there's snakes in the grass.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you hit a 550 credit score and Capital One's ready to give you a credit card.
yeah,
It's 35% interest.
right. But they're going to give it to you.
Oh yeah, they want you to have that credit card.
Well, and that goes to the whole thing with predatory loans with colleges.
Yeah.
That is huge. It's one of the reasons why I got out of college when my scholarships went up with my knee surgery. I did not have a clue what I wanted to go to do. Why would I want to go to college and spend more money or get myself in such a debt that I couldn't get myself out of?
Right.
If I knew what I wanted to do and had a focus, I would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But anymore, even I know of people that have probably even gotten that are doctors that owe so much in student loans.
That's what I was just thinking of. I know a doctor that he's been out of school for 20 years. He's still paying off student loans.
And he's probably paying close to half his income into student loans.
Yeah.
Because of the interest that accrued.
Right. And he's also told me that doctors don't make what they used to.
No, they don't. Because
The insurance companies have gouged it. big
yeah,
time.
that's one of the reasons why Luigi did what he did.
Mhm.
But we need to keep our morality.
Well, how do we fix the housing process? I mean, this is a housing crisis.
Right.
And it's not the fact that there isn't enough housing.
Uh-huh.
There isn't enough affordable housing.
There's not enough affordable housing. I don't know, Joe. I don't know how to fix it. I wish I knew.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like I said, if the median income, that means that the majority of the people in this area are making enough money that they can, if they needed a one-bedroom apartment, they can afford $1,100 a month.
well,
Shouldn't the average rent be $1,100 a month for a one-bedroom apartment?
right. But I'm also thinking of like what we were talking about with truckers' incomes and the illegals working in trucking industries
Uh-huh.
and illegals working in roofing industries. They're working in construction industries. They're working in farms. And a lot of people are saying, well, it's because Americans don't want to do those jobs. It's not that they want to do those jobs. It's just that
They
they're-
can't make enough money to survive doing those jobs.
right. If they were paid a living wage to do those jobs, they would do it.
Yeah.
I was watching a video where a guy
Roofing used to be a great job. People made good money doing roofing.
right.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. That's why we need to work on our immigration.
Yep.
Because now they'll be forced to pay somebody a living wage.
Right.
The reason why people can't afford to live is because they're not getting living wages.
Right.
And I was watching a video talking about iPhones.
Mm-hmm.
The true cost of an iPhone is like $16.
Right.
That's how much it costs to make the device that we're paying $1,000 for.
Yeah.
And you look at cars, they're probably similar to that too. Where's the morality in all that?
It's
You know?
profits for your shareholders.
Right. Where's the morality? And this is the thing. We're consumers of the same products that do the same thing to other people in other countries. You look at the children in mines mining the cobalt for all these different things.
Speaking of Apple.
Yeah. And I struggle with the guilt of that.
Who was it? Was it Nike shoes that were using kids in Singapore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Kathy Griffith, or no, not Kathy Griffith. There was a famous TV show host. I can't remember her name. She employed labor shops that had children in them.
Really?
Yes. She wasn't aware of it.
Oh, okay.
Because she was more of a figurehead of the company.
She's an investor
kind of thing, and they used her name. But you're also starting to see companies that have their own interest at work fighting American companies. Like
right.
Temu is really knocking it out for Amazon. Amazon's not competing with Walmart like everybody thought. They're competing with Temu.
Well, Temu's offering stuff for pennies on the dollar.
Right, that's what the true cost is.
Yeah.
So who's making all those profits? Because what China's doing is they're stealing our technology for building these iPhones.
Right.
And they're producing it at the same cost it costs them to give this American company to then bring here and sell here.
Right.
But they're cutting out that American company because they stole the technology.
As a matter of fact, just the other day I was curious on phones, and I looked on Amazon, and like the new Samsung G24 is $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
2 spots down is another phone that says it can do exactly the same thing as $179.
Right. So there was a phone that Samsung produced that had a little heat pipe in it to cool down the processing chip. And they spent billions of dollars researching and developing that for a cheaper phone to sell in Africa.
Okay.
And China built the same phone, called it a different name, sold it in Africa before Samsung. It's the same exact phone under a different name, but the trade laws in Africa is different than they are here in the States.
Yeah.
So, why are we dealing with China on all of our production?
Well, it's part of the global trade war.
Right. And we talked about that in our last episodes.
Yeah.
So, Joe, do you have any more?
No, I think that we've beaten the housing cost issue to the death. I mean, I was hoping that and I may still give Mike Scott a call and see if he'll join us on a podcast to talk about this issue.
That would be a great podcast.
Yeah.
And also, like, years ago, one other last little thing, I know we're kind of running on with this episode. When I bought my first house in Colorado, one of the realtors I was talking to was on the city council. So who does all the zonings for housing? The city council.
Right.
So, they have their own interest in part when it comes to all these things. And these are political areas. So, if you want to change things, sometimes you just got to run for it.
Yeah. That's why I was kind of thinking to give him a call.
Yeah.
In case you don't know, Mike Scott is one of our county commissioners.
Yeah.
For Orange County.
For Orange County. Yeah, if he would do a show with you and discuss these topics and what he wants to do to try to help fix some of these things.
If he's even aware of it.
If he's even aware of it.
Yeah.
Because all we want to do as American people is to live the American dream.
Yeah.
And it's making it, and things are fighting us along the way.
Well, yeah. People have already achieved the American dream.
Yeah. With no morals. Or maybe they lost their morals to achieve the American dream. And
well, I mean, this is why a lot of the millennials and Gen Zs don't like capitalism.
Right.
Because the capitalists have made it impossible for them to live any kind of a dream.
They see as the capitalists as the immoral.
Right. because they've destroyed the opportunity.
They've destroyed the opportunity, and I agree with them.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean that
that doesn't mean we can kill capitalism.
right, because once you kill capitalism,
Yeah,
we're all in
there
the
is
same
no
boat.
there is no opportunity.
There is no opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So like, share, subscribe, leave a comment.
Please.
I got one more episode I want to talk about.
Okay. Did you